With AWS Managed Microsoft Active Directory, you can quickly integrate your identities with your workloads and services on AWS. Whether you're migrating and setting up trusts with your self-managed AD, or you decide to deploy AWS Managed AD as your primary source of authentication, AWS Managed AD can help you on your modernization journey. Today, I am going to demonstrate a deployment of AWS Managed Microsoft AD and some of the integration steps, along with a few of the supported AWS services and features. So let's dive right into the console and get started. First, we'll head over to the directory service. You can deploy Managed AD using the console, the CLI, or with infrastructure as code. We're going to do today's demo within the console. AWS Managed Microsoft AD is already defaulted in the drop-down menu, so we'll go ahead and select Setup Directory. Click on Next. Now we have a few options and fields that need to be completed. For this demo, we'll select Enterprise Edition. The Enterprise Edition is optimized for approximately 500,000 objects, and we have the ability to deploy it in a multi-region configuration. Next, we'll need to provide the DNS name for the directory. I'll be using the DNS name demo.corp.local with a NetBIOS name of demo. With AWS Managed Microsoft AD, you're given a delegated admin account that has full access to a delegated OU, where you can create your users, your groups, computer objects, group policies, and define fine-grained password policies. So let's go ahead and set a password for this default account. Click on Next. Now we need to specify the VPC and the two subnets that will be used by the service. We'll select US West 1B and US West 1C in this case. Click Next, and we simply have to review the options that we selected and click Create Directory. This will deploy the domain controllers and inject the ENIs into the subnets that you selected. This normally takes a little while to complete, so we'll switch over to another region where I've already deployed AWS Managed Microsoft AD. As I mentioned, Enterprise Edition is capable of being multi-region. So let's extend this directory to another region where we may want to run some additional workloads. We'll go ahead and click on Add Region. Select the region that we want to deploy the additional domain controller site to. In this case, US East 2. Then we'll select the VPC, choosing a site or range that doesn't overlap, and two subnets that it will be deployed into. So we'll use, again, 2A and 2B. We'll click the Add button, and this will deploy all of the underlying infrastructure and deploy the domain controllers into a new Active Directory site. Now let's take a look at the Seamless Domain Join feature. So with the Seamless Domain Join feature, there's no need to script or automate your Windows and Linux systems to join the AWS Managed Microsoft AD when they're launched. We'll walk through this example using an EC2 instance. So we'll browse over to the service, click on Launch Instance. We'll give it a name of example-windows-ec2. And we'll be using a Windows Server 2022 license included AMI for this. And we can leave it with the t2.micro. That will be fine for our purposes. We can select a key pair. Make sure that we have the appropriate network settings for this EC2 instance and the security groups. Scroll the whole way to the bottom into the advanced details. This is where we're going to be doing the same seamless domain join settings. We'll select our directory from the drop-down menu, demo.corp.local, and an IAM role that includes the Amazon SSM Managed Instance Core and Amazon SSM Directory Service Access permissions attached to it. I have one created here for that purpose. We'll launch the instance, and that's all we need to do. At this point, we can launch it. It will automatically join the domain for us. No scripting, no maintenance needed. So at this point, we have our Active Directory domain controllers deployed in a multi-region configuration. We're able to seamlessly join our instances to the directory, as well as manage that directory from our domain joined instances. So what about developer workstation access? Well, We can easily integrate our AWS managed Microsoft AD with Amazon Workspaces. We'll browse over to the Workspaces service. Amazon Workspaces gives you the ability to deploy virtual, cloud-based Windows and Linux desktops for your users. Let's take a look at what it takes to integrate Amazon Workspaces with our directory. Let's click on Create Workspaces to start the process. As you can see, our directory is listed here. It's the first time that we're using this directory, so we'll need to register it. Let's go ahead and select it, click Register. We'll select the two subnets. We'll use again 2A and 2B. We can choose to enable self-service permissions. Self-service enables your users to change things like disk volume size, compute type, and so on, but we'll leave that unchecked for now. We can also enable the same managed Active Directory for use with our WorkDocs service right here in the console, but we'll leave that unchecked in this demo. Let's click on Register. Now we can select our newly registered directory and click on Next. We have the option to assign users from our directory and assign them directly to this particular workspace. Or we have the ability to create new users from this console location. So we'll go ahead and create a user in our directory. We'll call him John Smith. We'll include an email address as well. Click on Next. And we can see here that we can select from users that are already in our directory or the user that we just created, our John Smith user. Let's click on Next. Select the bundle that we want to use. And in this case, we'll go ahead and use the free tier eligible one. Clicking Next again. We can leave the defaults here for the rest of the options, including customizations, reviewing the options that we've already configured. Click Create Workspaces. And that's it. With just a few clicks, we've integrated our Active Directory with Workspaces, created our first virtual desktop for one of our new users. So once this workspace deploys, the user will receive an email, do their first password reset, and be able to start using the environment. Another common use case that we see is Windows integrated authentication for Microsoft SQL databases. AWS managed Microsoft AD makes it easy to enable this feature with Amazon Relational Database Service, or RDS. Let's browse to the service. And in here, you have the ability to create or modify existing RDS SQL instances so that you can use Active Directory credentials to access those database resources. Let's walk through the integration steps. We'll go ahead and create a new database, selecting Microsoft SQL as the engine option. We're going to leave most of the defaults here, but we'll go ahead and specify an admin password. Continue to scroll down. Take notice of the Microsoft SQL Server Windows Authentication option. Let's go ahead and enable that with a click. We can browse for our directory. Here's our demo.corp.local. We're choosing that. Continue to scroll down, create the database, and that's it. Once this spins up, we'll have a Microsoft SQL database instance that's integrated with our AWS managed Microsoft AD. We can connect to it using standard SQL tools and begin configuring permissions for the users and groups in that directory. We just looked at a couple of the supported native AWS features and services that directly integrate with AWS managed Microsoft AD. With just a few clicks, we were able to deploy all of our Active Directory infrastructure in a multi-region configuration, seamlessly join new server instances to the domain, deploy virtual desktops for our users, and deploy an Active Directory integrated Microsoft SQL instance. These are just a few of the ways that AWS managed Microsoft AD integrates directly with AWS services and your workloads. As we've seen, it's easy to deploy this in your account for testing and production purposes. Thank you for joining me as we learned about AWS managed Microsoft Active Directory.